The voice on the other end of the 911 call was frantic. "I'm going to die. They're trying to kill me." Welcome back to the Criminal Minds. Today's story is linked with one of the most haunting true crime stories in modern history. Shannon Gilbert's voice echoed into the early morning quiet of May 1st, 2010, bouncing off the walls of a gated community in Oak Beach, Long Island. It was just before 5 a.m. Shannon, 24 years old, was disoriented, barefoot, and terrified. She'd been running from house to house, banging on doors, begging for help, but no one seemed to understand what was happening, least of all the people closest to her. She had come to Oak Beach that night with her driver and sometime bodyguard, Michael Pack. She was meeting a client, Joseph Brewer, a middle-aged resident of the sleepy coastal town who had hired her as an escort. For hours, the evening seemed relatively normal, but something snapped around 4:30 a.m. Shannon fled the house in a panic, convinced someone was trying to kill her. Pack wanted to convince her to leave, but she refused. She ran into the night, into the marsh. She was never seen alive again. Before the headlines, before the 911 call, before her name became linked with one of the most haunting true crime stories in modern history. Shannon Gilbert was simply a daughter, a sister, and a fighter. Born October 24th, 1986, in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Shannon had a turbulent upbringing. She was the oldest of 4 sisters, raised primarily by her mother, Mary Gilbert. Their home life was marked by poverty, instability, and the harsh realities of survival in a world rarely offered second chances. Despite these challenges, Shannon showed promise early on. She was intelligent, creative, and fiercely independent. By her late teens, Shannon had aspirations of becoming a singer. She even recorded a demo track, holding tightly to the dream that one day she'd be discovered. But reality soon crept in. The bills piled up, and opportunities didn't come fast enough. With a need for quick income, she drifted into escort work, first in New Jersey, then in New York. She wasn't ashamed of what she did, according to her family and close friends. She saw it as a means to an end. She was saving for college. She wanted out. She had plans. But Oak Beach was not part of the plan. On April 30th, 2010, Shannon left Jersey City with her driver, Michael Pack, for a client appointment scheduled through Craigslist. The client was Joseph Brewer, a man in his 40s who lived in a quiet community in Oak Beach, an isolated stretch of homes along Long Island's southern shore. They arrived just before 2 a.m. Brewer later told police that nothing unusual occurred at first. He and Shannon talked and spent time together, and everything seemed fine. But sometime after 4 a.m., Shannon began acting paranoid, accusing Brewer and Pack of plotting against her. She was talking to someone on the phone. Brewer would later claim she just started freaking out. Around 4:51 a.m., Shannon dialed 911 from her cell phone. The call would last 23 minutes. In it, she sounded panicked, whispering that they're trying to kill me, and repeating that she needed help. Strangely, she wouldn't give a clear address, and she refused to stay still. Her location, remote, gated, and with limited access, only made things harder. She fled the house. Pack tried to follow her in his car. Brewer, too, stepped outside. But by then, Shannon had vanished into pre-dawn shadows. Despite the disturbing 911 call, Suffolk County Police did not begin a full-scale search that day. Michael Pack called 911 himself around 5 a.m., saying the woman he brought gone missing and was acting crazy. But because Shannon was a known escort and an adult, police considered her disappearance low priority. Some even speculated she was on drugs or had left voluntarily. Her family didn't agree. Mary Gilbert, Shannon's mother, reported her missing and pleaded for help. She believed something terrible had happened, that her daughter wouldn't have simply run off. Still, days passed with no real progress. Weeks turned into months. Shannon's disappearance faded from the headlines, replaced by newer stories. But Mari didn't stop pushing. She chased down leads, called the police again and again, hired private investigators. She had no idea what was about to be uncovered. In December 2010, 7 months after Shannon vanished, police made a chilling discovery. during a routine training exercise with AK-9 unit near Gilgo Beach. Just a few miles from Oak Beach, a cadavered dog picked up the scent. They found human remains buried in the brush near Ocean Parkway. It wasn't Shannon. Days later, another set of remains was found. Then another, and another. By the end of the month, police had found the remains of 4 women, all wrapped in burlap, all within a few hundred feet of each other. They were all sex workers. All had been advertised on Craigslist. All were believed to have been killed by the same person. The media dubbed him the Gilgo Beach Killer. And Shannon Gilbert's case, once considered a one-off, was suddenly part of something far more sinister. By early January 2011, the Suffolk County Police Department confirmed the identities of the 4 women discovered along Gilgo Beach. They were Melissa Barthélemy, 24, Megan Waterman, 22, Amber Lynn Costello, 27, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 25. Each woman had worked as an escort, advertising their services online. Each had disappeared between 2007 and 2010. All had been strangled and dumped similarly, wrapped in burlap, laid near the road, hidden just enough to avoid accidental discovery. And yet, none of them were Shannon Gilbert. This raised a terrifying question. Were they dealing with one killer or more than one? The FBI joined the investigation. The media frenzy exploded. People in Long Island and across the country wanted answers. The term Gilgo Beach serial killer was born, but the identity behind it remained a mystery. Still, no trace of Shannon. Her mother, Mari, refused to let her be forgotten. She believed Shannon had been murdered, possibly by the same killer, or maybe someone else entirely. The police weren't so sure. Some even began to suggest Shannon's death was unrelated, perhaps the result of a tragic accident. Mari didn't buy it, and soon her suspicions would grow. In the months that followed, authorities expanded their search radius beyond Gilgo Beach. They brought in ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, and even dive teams. What they uncovered stunned even seasoned investigators. More bodies, in total. By the end of spring 2011, 10 sets of human remains had been found along Ocean Parkway. These included the Gilgo 4, an unidentified toddler, a young Asian male believed to be a cross-dressing sex worker, 2 additional unidentified adult women, a woman named Jessica Taylor, whose partial remains had been found years earlier in Manorville, another woman, Valerie Mack, whose body had also been partially found in Manorville. The implications were devastating. Not only was this killer potentially responsible for 10 or more victims, but he may have been active for over a decade. Still, no Shannon. And then came December 13th, 2011. 18 months after she disappeared, a Suffolk County detective searching the marsh near Oak Beach noticed something white in the brush. It was less than a mile from where Shannon had vanished. Dental records confirmed it. Shannon Gilbert had been found, but closure did not come. Her body was discovered in a marshy area, without the signs of violence seen in the other victims. Her clothing was scattered nearby. Her purse and cell phone had been found earlier in the year, closer to the road. The official conclusion? Death by misadventure. Police theorized that she had suffered a psychotic episode, possibly brought on by drug use, and had died of exposure or drowning in the marsh. But her mother wasn't convinced. Shannon didn't run into that marsh to die. Mari said during a press conference, someone chased her. Someone made her run. And that someone is still out there. Mari's campaign to prove her daughter was killed reignited public attention, and she wasn't alone in her suspicion. Mari Gilbert became a relentless force in the investigation. She filed lawsuits, appeared on national news programs, and demanded independent autopsies. In 2016, she secured one, conducted by Dr. Michael Baden, a renowned forensic pathologist. Dr. Baden's findings were unsettling. He stated that Shannon's death was inconsistent with drowning and highlighted signs of possible strangulation. He believed her death was more likely homicide than accidental. The Suffolk County Police Department, however, did not change their conclusion. Mari refused to back down. She also became a vocal advocate for sex workers, shining a light on how police and media too often neglected or discredited their disappearances. She believed the killer or killers had exploited this vulnerability and that justice had not yet been served. Sadly, Mari's own story would end in tragedy. In 2016, she was killed by her other daughter, Sarah, during a mental health crisis. The woman who had spent years demanding justice for Shannon was now gone. But her fight was not in vain, because in 2022, the Gilgo Beach case would finally break wide open. For over a decade, the Gilgo Beach case remained cold, haunting families, frustrating investigators, and keeping Long Island residents on edge. Thousands of tips came in. Multiple suspects were floated and discarded. Documentaries were made. Books were written. Online sleuths scoured every available detail. But the identity of the killer stayed just out of reach until July 2023. In a shocking twist, authorities announced the arrest of Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old married father too, living in Massapequa Park, just 18 miles from Gilgo Beach. Heuermann wasn't a drifter. He wasn't a recluse. He was a Manhattan-based architect, running his firm, commuting daily into the city. On the surface, he lived a normal, even respectable life. But underneath that surface, investigators say he was hiding something monstrous. The breakthrough came from revisiting the evidence with new technology and renewed determination. Investigators re-examined burner phone records used to arrange meetings with victims. They reviewed DNA evidence found on burlap material and recovered bodies. They analyzed call patterns, particularly taunting calls made to one victim's family, traced locations near Heuermann's Midtown office. Most crucially, they linked a male hair found on one of the victims to Heuermann through mitochondrial DNA testing, a match confirmed by surveillance of his trash. The connection became undeniable. Heuermann was charged with the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello. He remains a prime suspect in the death of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, though charges in her case were pending. His arrest sent shockwaves across the country. The notion that a family man, a successful businessman, could also be a serial predator confirmed people's worst fears. The killer had been hiding in plain sight. After Heuermann's arrest, police swarmed his Massapequa Park home. What they found further confirmed their suspicions. Hundreds of guns, many unregistered and hidden behind false walls. Boxes of disturbing internet searches, including terms related to rape, torture, and child abuse. Multiple burner phones are used to contact sex workers and potentially stalk victims. Access to remote storage units, the contents of which are still under investigation. Neighbors were stunned. He was just a quiet guy who lived on the block. One said. Nobody ever suspected him. But Heuermann's own family was perhaps the most blindsided. His wife and children were reportedly out of town during the times the murders occurred, aligning eerily with the killer's pattern. Heuermann had crafted a double life with chilling precision. Despite the breakthrough in the Gilgo Beach case, Shannon Gilbert's death remains officially classified as accidental. Suffolk County Police still maintain she was not a victim of Rex Heuermann or part of the Gilgo Four. Her family and advocates continue to dispute this. Some investigators and journalists believe it's too coincidental. Her disappearance sparked the entire discovery. Her 911 call, her frantic running through Oak Beach, and her behavior all point to something more than a tragic accident. While Heuermann has not been charged in connection with Shannon, many believe his arrest may eventually lead to new answers about what happened that night in 2010. For now, her case remains open but separate. With Heuermann's arrest, investigators are now reviewing cold cases across New York and the East Coast. There's a growing belief that the full scope of his crimes is far larger than initially known. Some speculate there could be dozens of victims, especially considering his history of contacting sex workers over decades and his meticulous efforts to hide his tracks. In many ways, the Gilgo Beach murders echo other infamous serial killer cases. Men who led double lives, operating in silence for years, even decades. But what makes this case so unique is how it began had Shannon Gilbert not run through Oak Beach that night. Had she not made that desperate 911 call. Had her mother not refused to give up, none of the other victims might have been found. Even with a suspect in custody, the Gilgo Beach case continues to raise haunting questions. How many more victims remain undiscovered? Were there accomplices or enablers? Why did it take so long to identify a man who lived so close to the crime scenes? Will Shannon's death ever be reclassified? For the families of the victims, there is relief, but also pain. Knowing who did it doesn't erase the years lost or the loved ones taken. And for Shannon's remaining sisters, justice still feels incomplete. She was more than the woman who made the 911 call. She was a daughter, a sister, a woman who wanted a better life. Her name may not be officially listed among the Gilgo Four, but without her, there would be no arrests, no justice. She was a beginning. It all began with a whisper. Shannon Gilbert's 23-minute 911 call is one of the most chilling pieces of audio in true crime history. And yet, for years, it was never fully released to the public. Why? Police claimed the call was incoherent, that Shannon was disoriented, possibly under the influence, and not in immediate danger. But advocates and her family insisted it told a very different story. In 2022, after intense public pressure and legal action, parts of the call were finally released. What people heard shocked them. Shannon wasn't just rambling. She was begging for help. She repeated several times that they're trying to kill me. She mentioned people she didn't trust. She refused to stay in one place. Her fear was real, and it was raw, and yet help didn't arrive in time. The slow response, the decision to downplay the call, and the delays in launching a full-scale search raised disturbing questions about how seriously missing sex workers are taken, especially when they're poor or women of color. Shannon's case exposed that double standard in the harshest light. The location where Shannon's body was found, less than a mile from where she was last seen, continues to puzzle experts. Her remains were not hidden like the others. There was no burlap, no attempt at burial. Her belongings were scattered. Her body, face down in the marsh, was badly decomposed by the time it was discovered. And yet, many things didn't add up. Her phone was found closer to the road than her body. Why would she throw it away if she needed help? Her jeans were off. Her shoes were off. Her body was found in such a way that strangulation could not be ruled out. The private autopsy conducted by Dr. Michael Baden, as well as another by Dr. Cyril Wecht, both concluded her death was likely homicide, not drowning or exposure. Despite this, the official cause of death remains undetermined. Even in death, Shannon was treated differently. The discovery of the Gilgo victims opened up a painful reality. Many of these women had fallen through the cracks. They were daughters, mothers, and sisters. They had struggles, yes, but they also had stories, dreams, and people who loved them. The public often refers to them by their occupation. But here's who they were. Melissa Barthélemy loved to style her hair and talk on the phone with her sister every day. Megan Waterman had a daughter she was trying to build a better life for. Amber Costello was described as funny, tough, and fiercely loyal. Maureen Brainerd Barnes had taken one last job to catch up on bills. She never came home. Their deaths were not inevitable. They were victims of someone who hunted vulnerability, and society's indifference allowed him to keep hunting. Shannon's case is their mirror, different in some ways, but ultimately part of the same system that ignored cries for help until it was too late. In August 2023, Rex Heuermann appeared in court for the first time, shackled and silent. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, family members of victims, and curious onlookers watched as the man accused of being the Gilgo Beach serial killer stared straight ahead, emotionless. Prosecutors detailed his digital footprint, dozens of burner phones, online searches for torture, maps of burial sites, stalking behavior. The evidence was mounting, but Heuermann pled not guilty. His attorney called him a soft-spoken man, deeply misunderstood. But survivors and families didn't buy it. They knew. They felt it. Shannon's sister, Cher Gilbert, sat near the front row. She didn't need a conviction to confirm what she already believed, that this was the man who haunted Long Island's coast. Even if Shannon's case wasn't officially attached to Heuermann, Cher believed her sister had uncovered him in the most unthinkable way, by dying first. More than a decade after that desperate 911 call, the story is coming full circle. Not neatly, not cleanly, but with a grim sense of justice. Shannon Gilbert didn't live to see what her disappearance uncovered. Mari Gilbert didn't live to see Hoyerman in handcuffs. But their voices echo louder now than ever before. Their fight forced the world to look at the forgotten. Their pain exposed a pattern no one wanted to see. Their story unearthed a serial killer hiding in plain sight. This is more than a true crime case. It's a criminal mind to understand what silence can cost. What do you think happened to Shannon Gilbert? Was she the first victim, or the one who exposed everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story gripped you, hit that like button and subscribe to the Criminal Minds for more cases just like this.